All right, so today we are diving into something that has, well, it's stirred up quite a bit online.
Oh, yeah.
Steam's updated subscriber agreement. Yeah, and judging from the forum posts you guys sent in, let's just say some folks are ready to, throw in the towel, uninstall Steam forever.
It's interesting, to see such a strong reaction to what most people probably see as, just legal mumbo-jumbo.
Tell me about it. People are using words like betrayal, digital dictatorship. I even saw one comparing it to, the apocalypse. A little dramatic, don't you think?
Maybe a tad. But it shows how much these agreements matter, even if, let's be honest, most of us never actually read them. Basically, this document, it's like the rule book for your relationship with Steam, what you can and can't do on their platform. And it's pretty normal for digital services to update these agreements every now and then.
Okay, so kind of like how your phone apps are always making you agree to new terms.
Exactly. Laws change, Technology changes too. These agreements, they have to keep up. But with Steam, some of the changes they've made, they've really hit a nerve.
Let's get into it then. What exactly in this updated agreement has everyone so riled up?
Well, one of the big ones is what you could call the accept or delete dilemma. Basically, Steam is saying, here are the new terms, take it or leave it. You agree or you delete your account.
And looking at these forum posts, I'd say that hasn't gone down too well.
Yeah, a lot of people see it as a kind of ultimatum, Agree to these potentially bad terms or lose all your games. They feel like they're losing control. Legally, though, these types of clauses, they're everywhere, and usually they hold up in court. Companies, they have the right to set the terms for using their service.
So it's like you walk into a restaurant, they give you a menu, you can order, or you can go somewhere else.
Exactly. Now, where things get really interesting and a lot more heated is when you get to this whole ownership versus licensing debate.
Ah, yes. The digital age's biggest question. Who gets to keep the games?
Right. We're seeing tons of comments from users who are adamant that if they bought a game, they own it. End of story. But then you've got others saying, hold on, it's more like you're buying a license to play that game, not like owning a physical copy like we used to back in the day.
Yeah, I can see how that would be confusing, especially when you've got a digital library with hundreds of games in it.
Oh, absolutely. It's not like holding a CD-ROM in your hand. Right. Let me try an analogy on you. Imagine you buy a physical book, a real paper one. You can lend it to a friend, resell it, even use it as a coaster if you really want to. But when you buy an ebook, you're really just buying the right to read that book on your device, under the terms set by the seller, of course.
So you're saying that even though I might have spent hundreds of dollars building my Steam library, I'm essentially just paying for the right to access those games on their platform under their rules.
That's the gist, yeah.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another big concern we're seeing in the forums, the fear of being blocked from joining a class action lawsuit against Steam.
So people are worried that by clicking agree, they're basically giving up their right to sue Steam, even if Steam messes up in a way that affects a whole bunch of users.
Right, a lot of people are worried about that. There are a ton of theories flying around the forums about what this new agreement means for their, legal rights and all that.
Okay, so let's try to clear the air here. What does the agreement actually say about lawsuits?
This is where it gets really interesting, actually. Because this updated agreement, it actually moves away from this thing called forced arbitration.
Hold on. For those of us who don't spend all day reading legal documents, what exactly is forced arbitration?
Okay, so imagine you have a disagreement with Steam, right? Like a real dispute. In the past, you might have had to go through this thing called arbitration, which basically means instead of going to court, you have to settle it with a private arbitrator.
Mm-hmm.
And Steam gets to choose the arbitrator.
So not exactly an unbiased system.
Yeah, you could say that. But this new agreement, it gets rid of that whole mandatory arbitration thing.
So what you're saying is users can now choose to join a class action lawsuit against Steam if they want to.
Exactly. It gives users more options, more control, really, in how they want to handle things if they think Steam has done something wrong. It's a pretty big change. And it actually gives users more rights, even though some people are afraid it takes them away.
Wow, talk about misinformation spreading like wildfire. It really shows you how important it is to look past the headlines and actually figure out what's going on.
Totally. And speaking of different interpretations, you sent in a bunch of comments where users are, going back and forth, debating what certain parts of the agreement mean.
Yeah, some of these forum users, they could be lawyers with all the legal analysis they're doing. What are some of the biggest points of disagreement you're seeing?
Well, there are some users who are totally convinced that because Steam is changing the agreement now, They're going to go back and, like, invalidate all the games people have bought over the
So,
years.
like, they're going to log in one day and their entire library is just gone.
Yeah, basically. But legally, that's just not how it works.
Right.
A company can't just erase old agreements because they decided to update their terms of service. Then you've got others who are super focused on this word license. Like they're clinging to it for dear life. They're saying that because the agreement says license, that automatically means they don't own their games. And while technically that's true, it's a really, really simplified view of a complicated issue.
It's like, I see a recipe, right? And the recipe calls for salt, but that doesn't mean the whole dish is going to taste like, a salt lick.
Exactly. Context is key.
Mhm.
And of course, it wouldn't be a real internet debate without a few good conspiracy theories.
Let me guess. Steam is secretly run by an evil AI that's using all of our gameplay data to build, like, a virtual army or something.
Not quite that exciting, but there are some interesting ones out there. One comment I saw, they were claiming that this whole updated agreement thing, it's a distraction, like a big smokescreen to cover up a massive data breach.
Classic misdirection tactic. Works every time. But with all this noise, all this speculation going around, it's easy to lose track of what really matters. For the average Steam user, someone who just wants to, play their games and not worry about legal stuff, what does this update agreement actually mean for them?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, when you get down to it, this agreement, it lays out your rights as a Steam user and your responsibilities. It makes it clear that when you buy something on Steam, you're buying a license to use that game. Not like owning a physical copy, It also explains what you can and can't do with those licenses and how Steam can change these terms in the future.
So it never hurts to read the fine print. But this whole situation, it feels like it's about something bigger than just one company updating its terms.
You're right. This is highlighting a big trend we're seeing in the digital age, how the idea of ownership is changing, especially in a world where everything is subscriptions and licenses.
Think about it. Music, movies, software, even our games. We're basically just renting everything now.
Exactly. Instead of having a shelf full of CDs, we have Spotify. We don't own software anymore. We just have a license to use it. And this shift, it raises a lot of questions about what ownership even means in this digital world. And it has a big impact on consumer rights and what we should expect as users.
It really makes you think twice about hitting that buy now button,
It does, yeah.
Are we really buying anything these days? Or are we just, like, borrowing it?
That's the question, isn't it? The million-dollar question we're all trying to figure out.
And it's something we all need to, like, wrap our heads around, right? Especially with how fast things are changing online.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to get caught up in all the drama, all the scary headlines. But like you were saying, we need to take a breath and really understand what's going on.
Exactly. This is bigger than just Steam, really. This is about how we use and interact with all kinds of digital stuff. Understanding these agreements and what they mean for us. That's super important for making sure our rights are protected as users.
So for our listeners out there who might be freaking out just a little bit right now, what's the most important thing to remember? What do they really need to know?
First of all, don't panic. Take a deep breath. Read through the terms of service for any platform you use online. Don't be afraid to ask questions if you need to. And just be smart, Make good decisions about your digital life.
Solid advice. Like they say, knowledge is power.
For sure. And this whole thing, this is not going away. As technology keeps changing, these conversations about digital ownership, they're going to get even more complicated.
Which is why we're going to keep having these conversations right here. Diving deep into these topics so you can stay informed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. And until next time, stay curious.